Good morning, I'm Leah, and I'm briefly sober today. I have some experience with these steps with a loving, forgiving God, loving, patient sponsors, meetings like these. I have completed my formal amends, and I practice all the steps to the best of my willingness and ability on a daily basis. I haven't been here in a very, very long time. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful to see so many people in an in-person meeting. I feel the energy. It's like really amazing. So I'm grateful to be here. Maybe I should start coming to that meeting, business meeting. I'm a little nervous. So I will just start, and then God is going to just take over. So I actually came to this meeting very often when I was writing, and I loved it. So I haven't been here for a very, very long time. I love step 12. This is the step that I told my sponsor, like, nope, I'm not doing this one. This is the only one I blocked. I was like, I'm not equipped. I don't want to do it. I have nothing to offer anyone. And this is the one that God has me in, like, fully embraced. I love it. I live in it. And I practice this step on a daily basis. I'm very grateful that I learned what my purpose was, and that took a very, very long time. It was probably after my step 9 that I was like, like the light bulb went off, and I was like, it wasn't even about that I had something to offer. It was that I had a willingness to do God's work, and that's my blessing today. I love the fact that it actually kind of ends, it talks about drinking, and it ends, step 12, it ends about drinking, and our step 1 starts with the drinking. So to me, it's like, this is like a revolving, it's circular for me, my steps. So I'll just start with the drinking piece, and then I'll move on to, it's about relationships in the step 12. It's altruism, it's about helping other people without a motive. So the drinking part, with regards to my experience on this, I was that girl that I was so fearful of relapse that I went to retreats, I went to meetings, I read the big book, I just was like, oh my God, like I couldn't even live life because I was so full of fear. So once I wrote about my fear and that I don't have to relapse if I continue living the spiritual program, I can just chill, I can relax, I can breathe, and I was like, oh my God. Now my family, we have tons of drinkers in my family. Some of us are one of us, and some of us are not, and some of us are possibly one of us and are not in a program, I don't know. But there's a lot of drinking is what I'm trying to say. Back in the day, I was one of those girls that I was like, I held on to my Dunkin' Donuts coffee like for dear life when I would walk into a family function because I was so afraid that I wanted that drink. Today, I hate Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I think I overdrank it, and I don't have to be that. And that is a gift. I was also one of those people that thought, like, I can't have alcohol in my home. I have adult children that live with me. So that was the rule back in the day. Today, I don't have that rule. Like, I'm comfortable. I do know, and they know, that wine is probably not the best thing to leave on the table or on the counter. And so they know that, and they respect it, and all is well. That doesn't mean that I should have it. It just means like I've reached that neutral place. Now it talks about that spiritual distance, or at least it talked about, I forget how exactly it's said, but that I need to be in spiritual ground. So I believed in the past, so that was me then, that I needed a physical distance between me and alcohol. Today I knew I need a spiritual distance between me and alcohol. And that's how I start my day, is getting on my knees, praying to God. I don't pray to Him to keep me from drinking. I pray to Him to keep me from my selfishness and my dishonesty, and then that helps me to keep away from the drinking. Like, that's how I've evolved. What you see in here today, it is not where I was 10 years ago when I was doing my writing. So that's where I'm at. I go everywhere. I love going to family functions now. I love going out dancing. I love weddings. I'm okay, and it is such a blessing. That doesn't mean like I don't get squirrely sometimes. And when that happens, my exit is I go to the bathroom, and this is just who I am. I get on my knees. I'm like, God, well, what should I do? And if He says it's time, it's time, and I leave, and I'm okay with that. So that's the drinking part. I don't judge people anymore. I used to judge people that drank, including my family members. I used to get aggravated and irritated. I'm not that person. And what I learned I wasn't aggravated with them. I was aggravated that I couldn't stay drunk anymore. Like, I knew enough that I didn't want that. And so loving tolerance is our code. I mean, it says in here, if you're in here and you're listening or you're writing, whatever you're at, like, that is the word I kept hearing. Loving tolerance, loving tolerance. My sponsor always, whenever I call her up and I'm sharing about what I'm feeling, which today I'm able to be honest, she always says, Leah, bring it back to love, bring it back to love. And so that is always in my like, that's my thought process today. Like, I know I'm not responsible for my first thought, and it can be like, a knee-jerk reaction, but my second thought is always like, bring back to love. Love and tolerance is our code. And that's because I do go to meetings, and that's because I sit here and I do listen. And you guys have really, my family is so proud of you guys. Like, you don't even know, they love you because you've changed this woman. And I'm so grateful for that. So now I'm going to head to, what I find is really the crux of this program is building those relationships that I harmed, that I caused so much harm and pain that I wasn't even aware. Sorry, I get so emotional because I'm so grateful, because I was falling apart. I came in here so broken. They talked about the domestic relationships and the domestic problems. So when I came in here, I was married and I had 3 kids and I had a beautiful home and I had a beautiful Cape house, and I vacationed the way I wanted to, and I had built this beautiful home. All the decisions I made was for all these external things to fill me up. And then I was a binge drinker, so I thought I was controlling the drinking, and I was a freaking mess, and I could no longer feel the presence of God, and that's why I walked into the halls of AA. And so, so my domestic, I would call up my husband, and I'd be like, I don't want to come home. He's like, what? That's where I was. I'm like, I don't know why. I didn't even know why. I wasn't even mad at him. He wasn't doing anything against me. It was me. I was so uncomfortable with me that I didn't want to go. And I think what it was my alcoholism, untreated alcoholism, was telling me that I needed to die. I didn't have a suicide thought, but I think it was just saying, you are not deserving of what you have. That's what I believe today. And so I just couldn't go home. And then I looked at my little children's eyes, and I was just I felt like a hypocrite because I loved them, but I wasn't being the mom that they deserved, And one of my bottoms is that I remember I had made plans with my little girl and her friend to take him to the movies, and that day, it was the first time I ever drank during lunch hour. I never made it home that night. I never took her to the movies. So that was one of my really bad bottoms that brought me in here 3 months later. And so I still can remember that morning when I walked in, and my youngest daughter said, "Oh, you had a really good night, huh, Mom?" And she was kind of being funny, but I felt the shame, and I never want to feel that again. So the domestic relations that happens in a home isn't about so much our behavior. Sometimes it's about what we feel. For me, I guess I should say not me. I felt such shame about me, just period, about me. I wasn't okay anymore. And those external things were not filling me up anymore. And I was praying to God, and I was not, what I know now, wasn't waiting for the answer, because I couldn't sit still. So at the beginning of this, it talks about that. So what do we do, right? First of all, I couldn't blame others anymore, because I always blamed, my husband, fault finding. Oh my God, I'd be like, oh, it's your fault, that I'm not happy, and it was not his fault. I would look to other people for when I would go to a family function, let's say, and I love my family very much, and I would always look to see you're not paying enough attention to me. No one could. I was that incomplete. I was that broken. So fault finding, and again, looking for fill me up, fill me up, fill me up. And then unfortunately, my former husband also would feed into my disease, because he would say, yeah, it is other people's fault. Don't listen to them. They're they would ask for a dessert, bring the dessert. I would show up with nothing, and they're they take you too seriously. They should know by now, you're not going to show up with a dessert, And it sounds so small, but it was so big, because he helped me feed. And I'm not blaming him but I chose the right partners, what I'm trying to say, with my disease, chose the right partner for me to feed into my disease, if that makes sense. He is one of us today. He is in a program, which I'm so grateful for. We are divorced, but we have such an amazing relationship, and for that I'm grateful. So what do? So I find out through my writing that I'm dishonest and I'm selfish, and I did not know it. And then through my amends, and this is why it's so, well, for me, my amends is where I did my most spiritual growth, because I learned it's not about them anymore. I learned it's about me, how I have these like ulterior motives when I do whatever I do. What if I'm engaging whatever I'm engaging in? And so I went to Akron. Is it time? I'm good. Okay. I went to Akron, Ohio, a while back, and I remember going to Henrietta's home, and she has the round table, and I love that it was round, because roundness to me it means inclusion. And it had the 4 absolutes, which is unselfishness, love, purity, and honesty. I love that, the 4 absolutes. That is the foundation to me for the spiritual principles. Because if I'm in love, which for me love is the umbrella of it all, then I can be honest, then I can have pure motives, and then I can be unselfish, and I can think of others and what I bring to the table. So today when I go to these family functions, when I actually even just walk into my home where I have my adult children live with me, I think about them, and I think about what I can bring to them instead of what they can give me. Very different concept of how I live today. And so I actually have also these spiritual principles, these charms that I got from Al-Anon, actually, when I went to Stepping Stones in New York, and Lois's home. Lois is Bill Wilson's wife, if you don't know, and it talks about actually having the courage to be honest. It takes guts. During my writing, when I first started writing, I actually wrote lies. I wrote in pencil, and I didn't know that. That just like my sponsor had given me a copy of one of her turnarounds, so I thought it was in pencil. I wasn't paying attention, I guess. So I started writing in pencil, and I learned that was God, because I had to like erase so many things because I was so unaware of my lies. And then I actually wrote in code initially, because I didn't want my sponsor to know the truth. Like that's how I was, so guarded with my truth and my that shame I had in here, in my soul. So having the courage to be honest, and then the forgiveness. So for me to forgive others, I need to forgive myself too. It's easier for me to forgive you than it is for me. I have since forgiven myself. I still feel like sadness around, and that's okay. That doesn't mean I don't forgive myself, because for me, my forgiveness is saying, am I willing to be and do differently? So I am. So today, I'll just share, because I don't know how much time I have, and I just want to really... 7 minutes. Oh, good. Wow, that's unusual. What type of mom I am today. Because I walked in here because it's for my relationships. One, the most important one was for God, because I wanted to re-engage that relationship with my God. And 2 was my relationships at home with my former husband, and my daughters, and then my parents and my siblings. Those were my most important relationships that I wanted to amend to move forward. And so today, this is what it looks like with my daughters. Like, you know, that little girl that like I had felt so much shame, and that was a very long time ago, but today she's 24. And just this week, I reinstated family dinners, and we did it on the night that they liked, not the night that I wanted, because, you know, I've got my stuff, right? I got my women's meeting, I got this meeting, I got this. And they're like, no, I had to listen to what night works for them, and now we reinstated family dinners. And this week, just this week alone, she walked in, she lives down the Cape, she walks in, and now I've done a lot of work with her. I've been able to, like, it talks about in here not to, like, push yourself onto others. So I don't force things on anyone else. She used to walk into my condo, I kid you not, and she would get mad, and I'm like, no, we gotta resolve this. No, you know, like, I'm all like revved up. I would walk out into like the park, I lived in a condo, so into the parking lot, and I'm like, no, Tiana, we need to talk about this. We need to resolve it before you leave. I'm uncomfortable. And she's like, Mom, stop. That's how I was. And today, we actually don't reach the level of that I need to resolve things, because they get resolved by themselves. That's the amazing part, is that I'm able to just relax and breathe and let it flow. So I don't force things on her. Again, this has been, it wasn't an overnight matter, and he talks about that in here. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and it's my practice too. So this week she walks in and she's happy, and we talk, and now we're talking about doing a family vacation for Christmas. And a few years ago, she didn't even come to those family vacations. She's like, I'm done with you, Mom. You're too, whatever it is. And what I actually was this morning when in prayer, I was like, what was I to? To what? What was I to? And what I learned was I forced my values on my kids. And they have to administer their own values. They have to do their own inventory and figure out what their values are. I can be a role model, and I can show what I think is best. That doesn't mean they want to walk my path. They need to have their own spiritual path. And my ability to step back, I love my God and I have my faith, and I do say, hey, part of my faith is going to church. And today, even I think it was last time that we were away, I was like, well, it's Sunday, I'm going to go to church. Anyone wants to join me? Great. If you're not, I'll see you at lunch. And that's the end of that. And two join me, the other one doesn't. It's all right. And actually, that was her thing on this week. She's like, Mom, I want to go with you, but remember, I don't go to church. I'm like, I'm okay with that. But when I come back, please don't be high. That's all. Because that's what happened last time. And that's okay that I can say that, because that's what she did too. She left. And but I don't say it without judgment, and that's what's important. Thank you. So to be the ideal. So in here they talk about writing your sex ideal, and that's another step too. But what I write today is also I write my daughter ideal, my mother ideal, I have my ex-husband. He's relapsed. Several times I take the call. I say how I can help you, and each and every time I do it a little bit different. Because I'm like, what I did didn't work. And I know it's not about me, but I'm like, how can I help you differently? And I do ask him, and then I pass him along. He is a guy after all. He is an ex-husband after all. So I do you need to move forward, because I can't be your answer either. Because he's like, how did you do it? And I'm like, step work, big book. That's how I did it. That was my answer. Because I didn't want to be that person either, hanging on tight. Because the AA fellowship can only get you so far. It is the relationship with God that has helped me to get to allow myself to be open with my sponsor, to say this is what's going on truly in my soul, and how can I recover and walk a different path. And so here's what I'll end. I know that untreated alcoholism can lead me to my first sip of alcohol, which one then will get me into a really bad place. I do not do that. I need a physical and a spiritual distance between me and alcohol. And with regards to this step with relationships, I know that I need to be honest. I know that I need to go to God, be aligned, me and God, with my spiritual principles. And when I'm wrong and when I've done, because I'm not perfect, and I haven't done it well, I can pick up the call, I can make sure that I'm saying it correctly to my sponsor, and then I can go and talk to that person and be like, oh. Because with my daughter, there were many, many times that I didn't do it well. And then I'd call, and then I'd go to her and I didn't do that quite well, forcing it, running outside towards her, I got to resolve this. Maybe she wasn't ready. Obviously, she wasn't. So it's not about me. It's about allowing other people space. But at the end, and this is where I just want to end with this, working with others, I need to show up. Like I tell you, I'm going to show up. I need to be present with love as my ulterior motive. Just love. That's it. And then the rest is God's work. So thank you for listening. Love you. God bless you.